where we focus on two pillars of executive function that drive success: sequencing and problem solving. These are the skills that allow you to take a complex goal and break it down into an actionable plan. Today's lecture introduces brain exercises that specifically target the neurocircuitry responsible for strategic planning and error correction in multi-step tasks. This is an abstract theory. This is about training your brain to see the necessary steps ahead, anticipate roadblocks, and navigate complexity with speed and precision using just 15 minutes of focused cognitive calisthenics. Have you ever stared at a massive project or a long to-do list and felt completely paralyzed? This feeling, often leading to procrastination, is a failure of sequencing and strategic planning. Our brains struggle to accurately project future actions and anticipate the true cognitive or time cost of complex multi-step tasks. The core problem is that we default to the easiest first step, not the most critical one. The why behind the why is that planning the entire path requires intense mental energy, and the brain prefers to conserve resources by focusing only on the immediate, easiest task. The consequence is that we get stuck in low-value cycles. The solution is not willpower. It's sequencing practice. We need to deliberately force our brain to construct complex plans under pressure, strengthening the foresight mechanisms of the frontal lobe. Cognitive sequencing is the brain's master plan builder. It is defined as the ability to arrange a series of mental or motor actions in the correct, predetermined order to achieve a specific goal. Think of it as writing the cleanest, most efficient code for your day. Our critical mythbuster here is that successful performance is not about multitasking. Multitasking is an illusion that leads to massive cognitive switching costs, fragmenting your attention. Sequencing is the fact. It's about focused, linear progression toward a single goal. Why does sequencing provide greater sharpening than multitasking? Because it activates the supplementary motor area and the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex in a highly structured way, demanding continuous self-monitoring and error checking at each step. This deliberate construction of a mental map is the high-resistance exercise that truly boosts your executive function, enabling you to maintain a clear path from A to Z, avoiding those costly diversions. Mastering sequencing gives you three indispensable strategic superpowers. First, predictive foresight. This is your ability to look several steps into the future and accurately anticipate the downstream consequences or required resources. Why is this a superpower? It allows you to shift from being reactive to being proactive, enabling true strategic planning, whether for a career move or a complex project. The why behind that why is that you're strengthening the neural connections that link immediate actions to their long-term mental representation. Second, you gain enhanced error correction. When you actively monitor a sequence, your brain becomes faster at detecting deviations from the plan, allowing for rapid adjustment. This means fewer costly mistakes. Third, you achieve streamlined decision-making. By predetermining the sequence, you eliminate the need to make a new decision at every transition point, reducing mental friction and speeding up your entire cognitive flow. The foundational technique we'll use to sharpen your sequencing is the RPS method, reverse plan sequence. This technique is based on the principle that the brain creates a far more robust plan when it first works backward from the goal. Step 1 is R, reverse. Start at your desired end goal, the win, and define the single most necessary step that must precede it. Step 2 is P, precede. Continue working backward, defining the step that precedes that one until you reach your current starting point. How is working backward the key? It eliminates cognitive bias and guarantees that every step you identify is absolutely necessary for the end result. This is the how within the how for robust planning. Step 3 is S, sequence. Once you have the full plan, mentally walk the sequence forward, but at each step you must actively pause and identify one potential error or obstacle. This final stress test is your high-resistance error correction drill. Let's apply the first 2 steps of the RPS method: R, reverse, and P, precede. Your first integrated drill is the 5-step RPS challenge. The goal is to practice reversing a familiar sequential task. First, choose a simple multi-step process. Let's use a recipe, like making scrambled eggs. Second, write down the desired outcome, plate of scrambled eggs. Now, work backward. What is the single step that must happen just before the eggs are plated? Putting them on the plate. What is the step before that? Removing them from the pan. You must define a clean, linear sequence of 5 necessary prerequisites. This forces your brain to think causally and logically from the end result backward. Pause the video and try it now. Focus your energy on creating a precise backward chain. If you found yourself struggling to define the strict predecessor for each step, you were successfully resisting your brain's natural impulse. The struggle is exactly what we want. This backward process is so powerful because it overcomes anchoring bias, the tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information offered, which is usually the common starting point. By starting at the end, you force a genuine evaluation of necessity. The why behind the why is that working backward creates a causal chain in the frontal lobe, making the link between each action and the ultimate goal much clearer. Poorly done is listing actions randomly. Well done is creating a strict, non-negotiable causal chain. For example, you can't have the eggs plated, step 5, until they're off the heat, step 4. The clearer this chain is, the stronger your brain's sequencing ability becomes. Now we apply the final, most sharpening step, the S-sequence stress test. The goal is to practice predictive foresight and error correction. You will now walk the sequence forward from step 1 to step 5. At each of the 5 steps, you must actively pause and identify one specific, non-obvious mistake that could ruin the final outcome. For instance, at step 2, cracking the eggs, the obvious mistake is dropping the shell. The non-obvious mistake is using a cracked or old egg from the carton. This is the how within the how for building strategic thinking. You are deliberately injecting cognitive friction into a planned sequence to strengthen your brain's ability to detect threats and anticipate failure points. Pause the video and try it now. Focus on 5 unique, non-trivial errors. If you found yourself digging deep for those subtle failure points, like forgetting to turn on the heat, you successfully challenged your predictive foresight. This process intensely activates the orbital frontal cortex, or OFC, a region crucial for evaluating expected outcomes and learning from mistakes. Why does this stress test sharpen your brain so dramatically? Because you are running a cognitive contingency simulation. You are training your mind to look past the immediate action and calculate the impact of potential failure, which is the cornerstone of advanced strategic thinking. This is the cognitive equivalent of running a complex launch simulation before the actual event. The poorly done approach is to list only simple, obvious errors. The well-done approach is to identify a subtle error and immediately create a specific contingency plan for it. This layered approach of sequencing, checking, and correcting dramatically boosts your overall executive function. It is time for our final high-effort recall exercise. Pause the video now and retrieve the answers to these 3 key questions about sequencing and executive function. Welcome back. Let's review the deep knowledge. The primary myth about productivity that sequencing busts is that multitasking is the best way to be productive, when in fact it causes fragmentation. The RPS acronym stands for Reverse Plan Sequence, and its purpose is to create a more robust, bias-free plan. The 3 coach superpowers gained are predictive foresight, enhanced error correction, and streamlined decision-making. Pause the video and recall those 3 answers one final time. The myth is multitasking, RPS is reverse plan sequence, and the superpowers are foresight, error correction, and streamlined decisions. Excellent work. The grand conclusion of this lecture is that mastery of any complex task comes from the discipline of planning backward and rigorously stress testing that plan forward. You now have the full RPS method to immediately improve your planning, problem-solving, and strategic foresight. Your action plan is to dedicate 5 to 7 minutes daily to applying the RPS method to a real-world task, a section of a report, a cleaning project, or a travel itinerary. This continuous, focused effort will dramatically sharpen your executive function and decision-making clarity.